Hey guys, what's going on? We're live here, me and Steve Sheppard. We're going to dive into some push-up progressions and some tips on the push-up. Fantastic exercise, again, when done correctly. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you some basic tweaks and techniques on how to get into the right positioning and how to do some basic programming on the push-up. Very, very simple, but again, you have to pay attention. So the first thing that we need to pay attention to is pelvic positioning. Now, if someone is locked into a big anterior tilt right and they're really spilling forward, there could be some potential mobility issues on the anterior hip, right? We're not going to dive in and do a full assessment, but if people are living here, most likely there's restrictions on the front and they could probably benefit from some basic hip flexor stretching, maybe some quad stretching. That's kind of the first thing, right? Secondly, if they're in the opposite, they're in this posterior tilted pelvic position, there could be some tension and tightness on the backside. It could be hamstrings, it could be glutes, etc. So the main thing that we want to do is just find a way to level off the pelvis. And the best way to do that is by running them through like a quick FMS. If you have other screens, great. But you need to do an assessment first so you're not just kind of taking shots out of nowhere and trying to figure out what the heck's going on. So if we can take those mobility restrictions off the table and find that level pelvis, then we can start to re-educate that position and posture and then go from there. So I'm going to have Steve start in the quadruped position, okay? Hands and knees. Very, very simple, and I talk about the quadruped position all the time, but we're going to do a big arch. This is obviously not ideal, and then a big round is obviously not ideal as well. So we want to find the center, and from here we're just going to challenge this posture just from a little bit. Now at a very, very low level, we can just stay in the quadruped position. We don't come off of the ground. We're not in what we call a suspended spine position. And very, very low levels, we lift an arm. Go ahead, Steve, lift an arm. And boom, nothing changes, right? You can lift another arm, nothing changes, leg and leg. Now, a lot of people bomb through that very, very quickly. So from there, we go into bird dogs, quadruped diagonals, right? From there, we're going to go into some basic plank progressions, right? So we level the pelvis off, and then we go into some static postures. Now, I like to start with a shorter lever versus a longer lever. Why? Because it's just easier. Once they can show me they can own a basic plank position, then we can start to make it a little bit harder. So some of these plank progressions are actually progressions that are used for the push-up as well. So Steve, can you shoot forward just a little bit for me, bud, just so we can do that mountain climber variation? Actually angle yourself a little bit this way so you don't kick anything. Yeah, not quite that way, sorry, bud. So our basic, what we call table plank is very, very simple. We dig the toes in, we find this positioning that we're looking for, the knees hover off of the ground just slightly. I'm talking 1 inch, right? Nothing changes, boom. I found if people can hold that for 30 to 45 seconds, do multiple repeats of that and then go from there. So what do? We take them into the mountain climber plank, and what we're going to do is Steve's going to extend one leg back. So the toe is on the ground. Now, when we set this up, we maintain this positioning. One toe is dug in, the other one is dug in. So all he's going to do is he's going to come off of the ground, and this is going to emulate a mountain climber, but we're going to have one hip in extension and one hip in flexion. Okay, so it's not quite as hard as a regular tall plank, but it helps you bridge the gap from a table plank into a tall plank. So obviously you can rest, you can go to both sides from there. And then lastly, we take this mountain climber plank and then we make it into a tall full plank. And go ahead, Steve. Now guys, from here we may have to do some coaching. Believe it or not, there's actually coaching involved when it comes to this sort of thing. Now if Steve's hips are dropping too low, Steve, go ahead, drop. We're just going to say stick your butt in the air, okay? Come on up, come on up, come on up. Now, hopefully at this point we've educated our clients on what a pelvic tilt is, a posterior tilt, an anterior tilt, right? We're not just saying in a tall plank, tilt your pelvis, and they don't know what the heck is going on. So you have to educate your clients on pelvic positioning and all those things before you put them in this position. So from here, guys, we're just looking for a straight line, and then we're just going to do some basic holds. You can relax for 1 second. Now, that is considered a tall plank position. Now, what do we do from there? Honestly, it's really up to you. Sort of corrective exercises and coaching is really an art and science, right? So you can do let's show some shoulder taps, Steve. So guys, a shoulder tap, whatever sort of perturbation we introduce, this cannot change, okay? So if he does a shoulder tap, boom, this doesn't change. Okay, do a shoulder tap other side, boom, fantastic. And so now I'm just gonna have you lift one leg, Steve. So lift a leg, now you look, awesome, nothing's changing. So guys, I don't care what you decide to do. You can rest from me, bud. I don't care what you decide to do, just maintain the posture, okay? Don't make it too advanced where they lose it, and don't make it too easy where they're not challenged. Now, from there, the easiest way to get people to do push-ups is to start in a rack. You can use a Smith rack, you can use anything. So Steve, come on up. Now, what we try to do is all of our little notches here are labeled. You can use numbers. Ours are labeled from 1 to 22. You can either use numbers or you can use a color-coded system. We actually have both from a coaching standpoint. So we've got basic colors here. We've got red, we've got yellow, we've got green, and we've got white. Now, it's really simple if someone's in a group class and they just started out and they don't really understand push-ups. We're going to say, hey, we want you to do your push-ups on the red notch, which is the highest notch. Now, when we're doing our push-ups, nothing should change. So come on over, Steve. The body it's a moving plank. The push-up is a moving plank, so nothing should change. Just give me a set of 5. We can teach them, hey, let's maintain that posture. If we need to do a couple pelvic tilts before we go, fantastic. And go ahead, and he's just going to be going back and forth. Now, you can do multiple sets at this height. If you feel like it's getting too easy, we just slowly progress downward. But the key is to pay attention and track. That's one of the biggest things I think people miss on the push-up is with dumbbells, it's easy to write, I did 25 pounds for 5 reps, right? But when you're looking at a system like this, you have to pay a little bit more attention to where they were. And when in doubt, write things down, guys. It's really, really simple. And use the color-coded or use numbers. If you have a Smith machine, that's a great way to do it as well. But very, very simple stuff. The last thing that we're going to talk about is shoulder positioning. Now, a really simple way to teach people the bottom of a push-up is to teach them a row, right? So what we can do is we can get, I'll just use a regular band, but we can just teach people, Steve's going to just hold here, and I'm just going to have him basically form a standing row, and he's going to drive his shoulder blades back. So go ahead, and then row, boom, and then awesome, and then come back up. And so what I'm trying to teach people here, guys, is the bottom of a push-up position, right, is very similar patterning from a scapula standpoint to a row. So we can do some rows to allow that client to feel, okay, my lats are kind of tight, my shoulder blades are backing down, and then go from there. And we want to educate them on making sure that as they do their push-up, they're not dipping their shoulder forward, so we're losing positioning. So very, very simple stuff, guys, but when it comes to the push-up, I would say the coaching really comes from educating people on the pelvic position and educating people on the scapular position, and then just putting them at an appropriate level where they can work their elevated push-ups and go from there. There's some other R&T drills you can do at FMS level 2. We teach you a whole bunch of different variations, but for very, very simple progression, learn the pelvis, learn the scapula, and then just smart programming from there. Anything else, Steve, that you like to add?
I think my 2 favorite pieces are once we get into the tall plank and we start to stress the tall plank and we're trying to see that the spine position doesn't change, just using their water bottle, if they have one right next to them, put it on their back and just tell them don't drop the water bottle. That works out really awesome, especially when we're stressing it where we're taking one hand reaching across to the shoulder so that we're not seeing any rotation in the hips. And then when I bring them over to the bar, especially with the young kids, I actually have them do reps as slow as possible instead of trying to do a lot of reps. So instead of doing 10, 12, 15 reps, I'll tell them that I want them to do 3 with a 5-second lower and a 5-second raise. And that tends to really clean up their spine position because they're not rushing through it anymore, and they can feel at the bottom if their back starts to arch, and it gives them enough time to actually self-correct. And we've had a lot of success with that 5-second lower, 5-second raise times 3. And then we just add from there, especially with the young kids.
Yeah, and perfect example of this is, you know, with that eccentric timing, we're adding tempo when we're educating the kids about tempo, which is very, very important because if you've worked with younger athletes, they tend to bomb through stuff. So sometimes just giving them a tempo, a cadence, a rhythm to work with is going to allow them to sort of understand it. And like Steve said, with a water bottle, you can use a tennis ball, water bottle. You're giving them, an environment where they can feel things. It's very self-limiting, right? If they drop the water bottle, there's a pretty good chance they lost their posture. So, the push-up is a fantastic drill, but there is coaching. There's a ton of coaching involved, and if you want to allow your clients and students to really understand the positionings, you're going to have to front load the coaching, right? You're going to have to teach them early on what you're talking about, and you're going to have to reinforce posture and pelvic positioning and scapular positioning on more than just push-ups, right? Because they're going to see that in push-ups and rows and various other things. So, but if you can hammer that early on, and you just say to them, hey, tuck your tail, or they know they're gonna expect that you're gonna be on them. So, guys, simple stuff, but very, very effective when you take the time to do it right. So, hey, if you like this stuff, guys, share away, and we appreciate it. Have a good day.